You know, for years I've been reviewing NCOERs wrong, and I'm talking specifically about MOS code. This video, we're gonna talk about what is an MOS code or MOSC, how many digits are there, what is required, and what's the maximum. And since we're on that topic, we're gonna have to know the difference between the ASI and the SQI. As I grew through the ranks in the United States Army, later on I find myself reviewing NCOERs. And it's not just me, all first sergeants and command sergeants major are basically tasked with this very important role, which is reviewing all the evaluation reports for the soldiers. And a lot of times we focus on the bullet itself. However, on the page 1 on any NCOER, we're gonna have to master the admin portion. On the NCOER, you'll find the MOSC twice on that report. One is the primary MOS of the soldier and also the duty description. Now those two does not have to match all the time because we have different duty positions, an example of which is a recruiter. A recruiter's duty position is 79 Romeo. It's totally completely different from the actual soldier's primary MOS. Now we got that out of the way, let's talk about what is an MOSC and what is it used for. The MOS code, also we know this as MOSC, it actually provides more specific occupational identity other than just your MOS. It is used to classify the enlisted soldiers and also to classify enlisted positions in requirement and authorization documents. Another reason why this is important, the MOSC is used to provide detailed occupational identity in the records, orders, reports, management system, and databases. And the last one is actually the most important reason why you should care about your MOS code. It's used to look at you and determine your potential for the next promotion. That's why it's heavily used in the NCOER. So what we're gonna do now is look at all the characters on the MOS code. The first 3 digit on an MOS code is easy to understand because we know it since we joined the Army. It's basically your CMF or your career management field. These are your 11 Bravo, 11 Charlie, 12 Bravo, and so on and so forth. So that's easy. That's your first 3 digit. With the NCOER, it tells you that you have to at least get the minimum of 5 basic MOS code and no more than 9. It tells it in this regulation twice that on a primary MOS, you gotta have a minimum of 5, no more than 9. Same thing with a duty description of 5 to 9. All right, so let's look at those characters. As I mentioned, the first 3 characters of the MOSC is the CMF. The 4th character is your skill level. Your skill level is from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now from E1 to E4, that's skill level number 1, E5, skill level number 2, E6, skill level number 3, E7, skill level number 4, E8, skill level number 5, and E9, skill level number 6. The simplest way to look at the skill level is basically tied to your rank. The 5th character is alphanumeric. It's either a number or a letter. It's basically your SQI. We're gonna dive a lot deeper later on this video on the SQI. So just so you know, your 5th character is SQI. If you don't have an SQI, you haven't awarded an SQI, you're gonna have to put 0 or O. And here it is again. The whole time I was reviewing NCOER because I thought that you have to put O on your 5th character. But under the AR 623-3 and the DAPAM 623-3, if a soldier does not have an SQI, you can put 0 or O, either or. Both of them are correct. However, on the Smart Book, which is what I'm using, it actually tells you got to put an O. And that's probably why I got confused because the Smart Book says O, but the regulation or the DAPAM 623-3 says O or 0. I haven't heard of anybody didn't get promoted because they made a mistake with their O or 0 on the MOS code. We're going to set aside SQI for example. We're going to talk more in depth about SQI because that's where the confusion is all about, really. That's how I got confused and how to get them. What are the qualifications? What are the requirements to be able to get awarded the SQI? I just want to note that your basic 5 MOS code, which is a minimum requirement on the NCOER, ends on a 5th character, which is your SQI. Now let's move on to the 6th and 7th character. The 6th and 7th characters goes hand in hand. This is your ASI, or additional skill identifier. It is alphanumeric, which means it could be a number or a letter or numbers, but it has to be 2 characters. And we're going to talk more about ASI later on in the video in comparison with the SQI. If you don't have an ASI, you got to put 00. This is really where it gets specific, that it's not O, it's 0. Now let's move on to the last 2 characters of your 9-digit MOSC, which is the 8th and 9th is reserved for your language code. And if you don't have a designated language code, then you put 00. Remember, ASI 00. Language code is 00. This is where I got confused and I got it wrong through the years. I was under the impression, because I was told, I didn't validate the regulation, that you can put 2 ASI and 1 SQI. And it kind of makes sense, because an SQI is 1 character and ASI is 2 characters. So since the 8th and 9 is 2 characters, I thought you could put 2 ASIs. However, diving into the regulation, 8th and 9th is for your language. Now we have all the 9 digits of your MOSC. The next part of this video, we're going to dive into a little further on the SQI versus the ASI, and also the language code, because really that's where I was confused, and hopefully this video will help you out. SQI is your special qualification identifier. The skills that you get on your SQI is really applicable across all MOSs, so it's not MOS specific. To better illustrate this, we're gonna dive into a website, which I'll put the link in the description. Back in the day, it was a terrible place to research, because it only existed in the Mill Suite, and if you haven't dove into Mill Suite before, it's very confusing. But now G1 actually have this in a one-stop shop. They actually created a smart book, which I truly love, because smart book just simplifies your research for you. So let's dive into the computer. And in a computer is a simple Google search. And like I said, I also put that in the links in the description. You just put Army G1. There you go, the first one. All right, so now we're here on the G1 website. First thing you need to do is go over G1 publications, and just scroll all the way down until you get to DAPM 611-21. This is what I'm talking about. They actually have a smart book that actually summarizes and makes everything easier for you and your research. Now they're broken down into chapters, so you just hit the plus button and it's gonna expand to everything that you need to learn when it comes to MOS codes and all that stuff, and that's everything in this video. Go down all the way to chapter 9. Chapter 9 is really where the enlisted classification system starts. Now for this video, what we're gonna do is identify the SQI and ASI, which is in chapter 12, and you'll also find examples here on chapter 12. So let's go over the example of an SQI right here. Special qualification identifiers, and there's so many of them. And if you look, it's either a digit or a number. Training a developer is a number, obviously. But I just want to scroll all the way down to a first sergeant to better illustrate it. Now, I want you to pay attention to this, because SQI is very complicated, because it tells you on chapter 12 how to be able to get awarded the SQI. And it's not cookie cutter wherein, oh yeah, you just got to go to school and you get the SQI. That's the ASI, which we'll talk about later on in the video. The first thing that you're going to see is this description of the position, which is great, because if you got told, hey, you're the first sergeant, and a lot of times nobody teaches you how to be the first sergeant, you just kind of pick it up along the way. You go to chapter 12, it actually tells you a basic responsibility of that position, and just take it to heart, learn more about it. This is a good guideline for you to begin. Now, if you look at here in Bravo, you got the qualifications. You have to serve minimum of 365 days in a first sergeant position and be approved for the award of the SQI identifier, approved by the battalion commander or equivalent level authority. So that's important, because it tells you later on in how to request the identifier. So basically right here on Charlie, it just tells you you have to submit a DA 4187 signed by the battalion commander, and it's going to be uploaded in your iPerms, and it's going to be updated on your ERB, SRB, or whatever they call it now. Now, there are restrictions though. To get the mic, you have to be an E7 or E8. If your company is so short NCOs and you're staff sergeant and you're serving as the first sergeant, you won't be able to request this identifier. I don't know if you know this, but there's no schooling involved. But not all SQIs doesn't require school. Code Golf or G is the Rangers, and then the qualification, it tells you they have to complete the appropriate training at the infantry school and also meet the physical qualification for Ranger training and assessment outlined on the AR 40-501. So you have to have completed Ranger school to get the code G. Now within that, there is other Ranger SQIs. 75th Ranger Regiment Leader, and it gives you the qualification. You have a prereq of SQI of V, and you have to complete the RASP. There's so many things on here that tells you how to be a Ranger Regiment Leader. They're prereqs. So it tells you before you get the code, you got to get the V. Now to get the V, it's Ranger Parachutist. Yeah, Parachutist. To get the Victor SQI, it tells you they also have to complete the requirements and awarded the SQI of Golf, Ranger, and the Parachutist. So what I'm trying to tell you is when you look at deeper, it's a lot more complicated just going to school. You gotta at least download this table right here so you kind of know. I hope that clears out the confusion. Now we're done with the SQI. Let's look at the ASI. ASI is a lot easier to understand, which is basically additional skill identifier, which comprises your 6th and 7th character of your MOS code. The only thing that's involved for you to get the ASI is go to school, regular military school, or an equivalent civilian certification. One special thing about the ASI that's different on the SQI is that the ASI is MOS related. And if you don't have an ASI, you haven't awarded an ASI, you got to put the code 00. ASI can be tricky as well because some ASIs have restrictions, and most of the restriction falls under your skill level or your rank. So I'm going to use my CMF, which is 7 Romeo Recruiter. That's the easiest way for me to explain this. There's two most common ASI in recruiting, which is the Victor 6 and Victor 7. Victor 6 is your station commander. Now, this is very interesting because if you look, besides going to school, there are restrictions. The restriction is you can only use it if you're a 7 Romeo, if you reclassify to 7 Romeo, and your rank is sergeant to sergeant first class or E5 to E7. Now for me, obviously I graduated as scores, but I am already a first sergeant or I'm an E8. Even though I'm 7 Romeo, I have to drop this ASI. If you're still watching this video, good on you. So which means you're learning the biggest difference and to fix the confusion between the difference in the ASI and the SQIs. And I'm telling you, it blew my mind. Lastly is the language code, which serves as your 8th and 9th character. For you to be able to get the language code awarded so you can add it on your 8th and 9th character on the MOSC is that you have to take a test. So on here, I downloaded the different language codes. For you to find out the language code, all you gotta do is do a simple Google search. So these are the DoD. This is in 2014. The reason why I'm showing you 2014 because it gives you the complete list. There's a new one that came out in March 2023 that gives you just a shortened list of what DoD actually pays, so you can understand what the codes are and how you put it on your 8 and 9 character. See that digraph code? The digraph code is actually what's gonna be on your 8 and 9 character. For me, it's I actually have two. It's Tagalog and Visayan, so it's Tagalog TA, so I'll add that on my 8 and 9. Now remember, you gotta take this test every year. 1, to get paid. 2, to keep that language code on your 8 and 9 character. I know what you're thinking. It's very confusing. That's why I'm making this video, to help you understand and also to correct myself and also prevent you from making mistakes. If you like this video, hit the like button. You already know the deal, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. You can also use this to share to your peers so that they can understand better. But the best advice I could give you is dive into the regulations, because even today, after 16 years in the Army, going back to the regulation still blows my mind and makes me realize that some things I've been doing wrong the whole time.